So you might recall that several times when I've talked about it, here on YouTube and through various podcasts, that I'm pretty much a fan of what's been going on, I guess, when, people like Trouble TRO and Joven16 and Nextstat and all of them decided to go and utilize the shape-shifting route with their female characters or characters of any kind. Well, I also talked about, I think several times before, that it seems that, going in this direction of, allowing characters to have malleability-like powers, shape-shifting powers and all that, is becoming a very popular trend. When it comes to not just, content creators, writers, artists, you name it, animators, and so on. But it's also now suddenly becoming a trend within Hollywood itself. Yes. Yes, that is true. It's becoming a trend in Hollywood itself. And why do I say it's a trend? Why do I say it's a trend? I say it's a trend mainly because of the fact that now you're getting reports of the next Batman film, The Batman, which apparently is an Elseworld franchise within DC, basically a DC Elseworld story, if you will. You now have basically, reports coming out that they want to bring in Clayface. That's right. They want to bring in Clayface. Now, what's interesting about this, and I was watching 3C Films talking about it, what's interesting about them wanting to bring in Clayface is they have two different scenarios of how to bring him in. One could be the very well-renowned ever popular Clayface that we all have pretty much grown up with, from the Batman animated series to the comic books to the various other Batman media that's been out there. That's the Clayface we know of, and that's the Clayface we would think would be brought into, well, the DC universe, well, at least the DC Elseworld universe with the Matt Reeves Batman series. We would think that's the Clayface. Now, Dr. Sleep director, I think his name's Dave Flanagan, has pitched an idea for Clayface to be in a movie. Whether it's the Batman sequel as the villain or sympathetic villain or whatever, or have his own film or series, he's pitched it. And with this being discussed and everything, it's gotten people wondering, well, how can they incorporate Clayface if he's a shape-shifting villain? And again, it goes back to what I said earlier. There are two other ways they could do this, or another way, I should say. The first way, just like I mentioned, is incorporating the Clayface that we all know. But there is another version of Clayface, a Clayface that actually debuted in the 1940s. I think throughout the 40s or something like that, after the Batman series debuted as a comic, they basically had Clayface show up. And Clayface was basically a former actor, if you will, that donned a mask and gloves, green mask and gloves from what I'm understanding, and sort of as well as wore, I guess you could say, a spirit/shadow-like outfit, if you will, hat and, tie and suit, if you will. And basically what this Clayface back in the 40s would do was, go around and kill a lot of the production crew and the actors and actresses that were taking part in one of his former plays that he used to be part of. And he's doing this out of vengeance because the studio or the theater didn't call upon him to reprise his role. Now, there is a good chance that if they want to keep, that if Matt Reeves is intending to keep this version of Batman, this Elseworld version of Batman, within its own, tiny bubble, if you will, and have it based more in reality than anything else, I could see, honest to God, the first ever version of Clayface from the 40s being brought into the fold and updated with a modern look. I could see that. I mean, one thing that 3C Films brought up was when you look at, Christopher Nolan's films, with the Batman, like Dark Knight Rises, and Batman Begins, when you look at the Christopher Nolan films, he tried basing and grounding a lot of those movies, Batman and his antagonists, within the film, within the grounds of reality. basically within the grounds of reality, and that included Bane, because Bane was not the way we knew him. He was more reality-based. He didn't have any venom, poisoning his body or inflating his body like freaking steroids, times 1,000. No, he was just a regular, like, crime boss, if you will. Now, if Matt Reeves follows suit to what Christopher Nolan did with those films with the Batman series, then yeah, I could suspect that if Clayface is being talked about as a possible villain, if not the villain, in the Batman 2, then I could see, like I said, the earlier incarnation of Clayface from the 40s being basically updated for a modern era to be the main villain here in the Batman. I could see that. Let's look at what they did with the Riddler, for goodness sakes. Everybody is always used to this corny, campy, showbiz-like Riddler character, right? No matter what the incarnation. But here in the Batman, we didn't get that. Instead, we got a more psychotic Riddler, a more dangerous Riddler, a Riddler that, like, you don't want to meet him in a dark alley kind of deal because you don't know what the hell he's going to do. And if that's the direction Matt Reeves wanted to go with the Riddler in his more reality-based Batman, then again, if I'm looking between both versions of Clayface and everything, then there's no doubt, in my opinion, he would probably go with the earlier incarnation to keep it more ground-based, more reality-based, if you catch my drift. Now, apparently, according to 3C Films and other sources, Matt Reeves has made it known that he would like to possibly dabble in the more fantastical realm of the Batman universe and everything. But here's the thing, even though he says that, he's got to remember that the audience gets accustomed, or has become accustomed, to what he's already presented. So if he wanted to go that fantastical route and bring someone like Clayface in, then it's going to, and bring him in the way we all know him, then it's going to really kind of be like very, how do I put it, very off-putting for a lot of fans. Because it's going to be like, wait a minute, you're going from a more reality-based, reality-based, grounded, down-to-earth film in the Batman to taking its sequel and making it like this. Because we also got to remember that in between there, we have the Penguin series coming out next year, too. And whether or not that plays a role in the second Batman film is up for discussion for a later date. We'll probably get more information about that down the line. Now, with that said, though, when we look at Clayface, I could look at something more along the lines of what James Gunn has in mind for the Batman Brave and Bold movie, that he's going to have part of his first chapter of Gods and Monsters, basically the first phase of the James Gunn DC universe. So I could see the Clayface we all know and love being part of that, and not part of, the Matt Reeves Batman Elseworld universe. But if Clayface is to be utilized, then yes, I could see maybe the Clayface of, the 40s and everything being updated for a modern age to be the villain of, of the Batman 2. I could see that. But if Clayface doesn't get incorporated, because right now it's in discussions, we don't know if it's true or not. Although Deadline, along with some other reliable sources, are saying that it looks like it's going to be true. But if they don't do Clayface for the Batman 2, if you will, then yes, there is a good chance that he could be included as a villain in the Batman Brave and the Bold as the way we know him. He could be included that way. Now, there's also discussion from what Dave Flanagan, the director of Dr. Sleep, has said, in discussions with Warner Brothers, that perhaps Clayface could get his own spin-off, get his own spin-off movie, because the way he describes him is that this Clayface would not be so much of a bad guy, like maybe just misunderstood and stuff like that. So there's a good chance that if, Clayface does make it to the big screen, but not as part of the Batman Matt Reeves, universe, but he makes it as part of the James Gunn universe, there's a good chance we'll get the Clayface we all know and love. There is a good chance. Now, I bring this all up because, again, as I mentioned earlier, it seems that the popular trend and trope of shape-shifting characters, of people with shape-shifting powers, male or female, seems to now really be, I guess, accepted, if not being, I guess you could say embraced by Hollywood. Because, like I said, you got this being discussed, and then on top of that, I don't know if there's any information on it, that's come out as of late to update us on what's going on, but you have discussions of a female-led Plastic Man movie, which makes it more Plastic Woman if it's going to be female-led, and I say that with all due respect, no offense. And we all know that Plastic Man, and by extent Plastic Woman, have shape-shifting abilities. They can become anything or anyone they want, even melt down into a puddle of goop, if you will. So, there's discussion, so there's, talk about that. Again, we haven't heard anything as of late, but there's still talk about a female-led Plastic Man happening, when and where we get more information, and when and where we find out how this is going to be female-led, whether it's going to be the female associate of Plastic Man that's going to be the lead, or she's going to have the powers. Hopefully we'll get more answers in the future. And then you got the animated Metal Men series as well. You got the animated Metal Men series as well, and those characters shapeshift a lot. Mostly, if you watch the Batman Brave and the Bold animated series, if you will, that Platinum, being flirtatious, depending on what version she's portrayed as, she likes to shapeshift into a lot of things. So, if there is a Metal Man series or movie coming out, animated-wise, and part of their trait is shape-shifting, but mostly, Platinum being the one that shape-shifts, again, you could see that you could see that Hollywood and the studios like Warner Brothers and Disney and others are starting to embrace it, because they know that if they go in this direction with the characters, male or female or non-binary, transgender, whatever you want to call them, lesbian, whatever, they know as they go in that direction and give these characters these kind of abilities, even if it's temporary or permanent, that their imagination, can become unlimited for what they can do. The creative, imagination, the creativity, if you will, would know no limits, because of what they'd be able to allow the character to do with these powers. I mean, one person, and hold on for a sec while I look up their name. One person, Milky Waves, here on YouTube, she basically talked about, in a recent video that came out about an hour ago, by the time I'm recording this, it's about 10:50 in the morning on this Monday morning. Milky Waves basically said that, not we, but Disney missed out on an opportunity in the finale of the Owl House with basically Luz, a new pet, if you will, her new paladin, if you will, having the ability to shapeshift. And she said we basically missed out on that, especially when they did the time jump, to see what crazy things her paladin, Snakebite, what is it, Snakebit or something? Hold on. The name is Stringbean, but again, she mentions the fact that they missed out on an opportunity to really explore Stringbean's abilities as a shape-shifting creature, or a shape-shifting paladin, who only basically shapeshifts into basically the primary, I guess you could say, inanimate form of a wand, and that's it, before basically becoming a pet, a pet-like creature for Luz in the years that followed after the finale. But she said they missed out on it because it would have been great to see, what kind of crazy things that, Stringbean could turn into, especially when Luz got her temporary Titan form at the end for the climax. So if we have someone like Milky Waves, who obviously is a very well-renowned YouTuber and has two channels, one being for her covers music and everything, and she has a song she wants to plan to release for the Owl House finale if she hits 10K. But basically, if we have someone like her coming out and saying, "Hey, Disney, you missed out on an opportunity here," it shows you how how, I wouldn't say how big, but how more influential and how more, I guess you could say, inspiring, adding shape-shifting into a story for a male or female character, or creature can be. Because again, it allows your imagination as a content creator or a creator on the show and as a writer to go wild, to basically explore all these options, that lay, before you. They lay before you, that you could take advantage of, and you could show the unlimited potential in them. But unfortunately, as she put it, the Owl House missed out on that opportunity in the finale. But again, it just goes back to the fact that, it started with us as content creators, artists, writers of fan fiction, original stories, and all that. And now it's expanding. It's now expanding basically into Hollywood. And Hollywood, through various studios, major or independent, is embracing it. And I love that. I mean, if you think about it, one of the most popular shows here on YouTube is independently funded through Patreon and Kickstarter, and that's Hell of a Boss. And one of the characters on there, Luna, a very popular character, believe it or not, has the ability to shapeshift. Not, shapeshift into like inanimate vehicles or melt into puddles and all that, although they could still explore that if they wanted to. But her primary shapeshift is to go from basically her anthropomorphic hellhound form to basically a human. That is her shapeshifting ability, and apparently all the hellhounds have that, but she's been known to primarily be the one that does it the most. In fact, she used it in basically one of the earlier episodes of the current season before she talked to, I can't think of it, Octavia, and had that moment, which gets replayed a lot here on the tube because it's a great moment, and it shows that Luna cares about her father Blitzo, even though she still kind of keeps up the facade, if you will, of being the tough girl, like, hey, don't push it kind of deal, or else I'm going to kick you in the you-know-whats, the gonads. But yeah, even she has the ability, even if it's not like I said, even if it's not the way we would believe it to be, she has that ability. So to me, it's obvious that this is becoming a trend. In Hollywood, it's becoming a trend. Not just, still resonating with fan content creators and all that, writers, artists, animators and all that, but it's becoming a trend and being embraced as a trend in Hollywood. Because again, if you have, people like Dave Flanagan talking about wanting to bring Clayface into the DC universe, whether it's part of the James Gunn universe, whether it's part of the Matt Reeves, the Batman Elseworld DC universe, when you have people like him talking about bringing in the character, even for their own solo film or series, and then you look basically at potential movies or series based on shapeshifting characters with shapeshifting abilities, like the talked about female-led Plastic Man film, which again we still don't know much information on that. And then, of course, the Metal Man series, where one of the characters, primarily Platinum, a female Metal Man, likes to shapeshift. So, I mean, the fact that you have all these, all these potential ideas for movies and shows with characters that can do that, being talked about and embraced, it's unreal. I mean, even look at Clayface in the Harley Quinn series. Clayface basically is kind of like what Dave Flanagan says. He's not such a bad guy. He just likes to, shapeshift when he has to, and even has the potential to split in two and kind of get intimate with himself, especially, let's say, he turns his other half into a female, which, by the way, he can do and everything since he could shapeshift, and they do fully embrace that. But, The long story short, it shows you that what people like Trouble TRO, Joven16, Nextstat, Mr. Internet Man, it shows you that what they're doing on their own and together collaboratively, it shows you that them using the shape-shifting plot, or the shape-shifting story plot, for the main characters, is worth checking out, is worth utilizing, because as we're now seeing with Hollywood, you could be in the studios, like I said, the major ones and independent ones, you could let your imagination creatively run wild and basically show one way or another how unlimited your creative mind can be with taking this character that permanently or temporarily has this power and allowing them to do whatever they want to do, like become whatever they want to become, whether it's another person, a vehicle, an inanimate object, melt into a puddle. The possibilities are endless. So upon hearing the fact that now you have, talks of Clayface coming in for either the God and Monsters James Gunn Chapter 1 DC Universe or movie cinematic universe, or even maybe, coming in as part of the Batman Matt Reeves universe, to hear that's happening is not just surprising, but it shows that, either way, we could see shape-shifting Clayface show up, one way, in some form, some capacity or another on either side of the fence. But like I said, more than likely, if they were to bring him in for the Matt Reeves one, I think we'll probably get a Clayface that's closely more resembling the early interpretation of him from the 40s. That's what I think. But if they hold off on it and say, hey, we're going to bring in Clayface as part of the Gods and Monsters deal for the Batman Brave and Bold movie, or maybe they decide, hey, we want to do a Clayface, series as part of Gods and Monsters, and make it animated. Hey, more power to you, and you'd be able to do whatever you want to do with the character creatively, down the line. I mean, heck, if you do a Clayface movie or series and you animate it and you kind of put it as an adult animated series, you could kind of make it comedic along the lines of Harley Quinn. Don't forget, you could also use it to spin off, not spin off, but you could also use it to introduce the other members of the Clay family, like Clay Woman, Lady Clay, you name it, and what they're able to do. So possibilities are there. But yeah, this is, to me, whether they decide to go in this direction or that direction, with Clayface involved in the DC movie universe, whether it's the Elseworld, movie universe, like with the Batman and all that, or it's the Gods and Monsters one by James Gunn. I'm going to say this right now. I cannot wait to see how they do this. Again, I believe with the Batman, if they bring him in there, it'll be more of the Clayface that we've heard about, the first interpretation from the 40s and early 50s. But if they save it for the Gods and Monsters universe as a television series, or as the main villain, or one of the main villains in Batman Brave and the Bold, or even added in as a new movie as part of the Gods and Monsters universe, then yeah, there's no doubt, in my opinion, we will get a Clayface that's more closely resembling what we know, not what we know, who we know Clayface to be, as a villain, anti-hero, you name it. But yeah, let me know what your guys' thoughts are. What are your thoughts on the fact that now Hollywood, just like people like Trouble TRO and Joven16 and Nextstat and Mr. Internet Man, what are your thoughts on Hollywood basically taking up the mantle of using shape-shifting, for characters into the production series or movies? Let me know what your thoughts are. Comment down below, live chat during the premiere, and until next time, guys, I will talk to y'all later.